Where I left off, though, I was trying to implement double-click functionality, which I figured out in my own way, and I coded it in a modular fashion. And if you want to check that out, I uploaded it to a GitHub repository called Reusable Code. I got my iMovie up right now, and it sucks up my RAM, so I'm going to try to go to it for you, though. So it's github.com/Bazinotti. Same place where SNES Tracker is. You can go to my repositories, and there should be a reusable code right here. SDL doubleclick.h. And I'm not going to explain it because I'm lazy, but it's simple enough, dude, that you could, alright, why not? We'll walk through it. Basically, you want to include this in, like, you know, your SDL application. And then after you initialize SDL itself, let's say you have an init SDL function. Well, after you init SDL, you're going to want to call from the double-click namespace, so double-click : init. And that's this function down here. This will make sure that the SDL timers are initialized, and it'll add our own little internal timer, which is distinctly what we call the double-click timer. Wait a second. Let me see this. This doesn't have to actually get called. So what you're going to see is this is completely bullshit, because when the actual timer callback itself, which we load up here when we add the timer, we make sure to return 0, which is the next interval for a timer to occur on. And if you return an interval of 0, you're actually telling the timer to shut itself off, which means that this is like a one-off timer. Whenever you activate it, it'll only run once. The reason why we do that is because when there's an SDL mouse button down event and it's a left click, we update this variable that does like the number of clicks. Ignore all of this for now, because basically what this says is if we haven't double clicked yet, it means we've only clicked once. If you've only clicked once, we're going to start a timer of 800 milliseconds. This 800 should really actually be the double click time window. So this code needs to be updated. But this one-off timer will go, and if the one-off timer is reached, it's going to reset num clicks. Am I crazy? Where is it? It's gonna, since this is firing in another thread, we don't modify the variables from the timer. So what I do is I have a custom user event that I've crafted with a custom code, and I rifle it off by using push event. When the event gets pushed, and now you're in your SDL, main source code in your event loop, you want to call this function from your main event loop and pass in the event as give its address to this function. Because what this is going to do is, if we get the user event of reset, we're going to reset the num clicks. The whole thing is that if you don't double click within 800 milliseconds, it's not counted as a double click. And then we have this other user event, which is react. And what that happens here, if we actually get to 2 clicks, we're going to remove that timer. We don't need it anymore. We're going to reset the number of clicks to 0. And we're going to fire off a react event. And we also copy this current event's data, because when we get the user event, we're not going to have like the mouse coordinates and all that good stuff. Alright? That's how that works. Okay. I'm going to go and modify the stuff that I found that was problematic right now. One thing I want to talk about is this user events, right? If you start using if you have your own SDL user events in your code and you want to use this mouse stuff, what I've done is I put this SDL user events header file. And the way I do it is SDL user events.h. I have a namespace user events with an enum where I include stuff that I want from each different, like, quote-unquote module. Meaning that, like, for my double-click events, if I just open that up, it's literally just a comma-separated list of events that I want for that module. And that way I can just include it into a global sort of user events namespace to enum called events. Alright, that's how I do that. And yep. Okay, I want to talk about how I got, you probably haven't seen it yet, so I'll show you. I finished implementing the whole like modifiable memory window where you can just double click, you get a cursor, and you can start just overloading it with values. You can hold it down and it'll fill up. So that works. Hit escape and you can get out of the lock and do it other places. I'm going to do it here because I know there's some drums I can modify, right? Hear that? That's cool. So yeah, you can modify like the real data live like that. That's cool. If you want to, I don't know what we're gonna do with that yet. But let me quit. I want to talk about how I got this cursor to begin with. The way VSPC Play works is that we have these SDL fonts. This is not the right one though. Where is it? Font.h, font.c. Alright, so here's like a font, and these are like pix maps. And basically, I went all the way to the end after Z. I added in my own pix map, which I just kind of fiddled with to figure out how to get a good looking block. And then I went in and I modified this. This used to be greater than 5a, but now I made it greater than 5b. So greater than Z plus 1 because of the added block char. And then if I want to print a block char, I just print the 5b character, \x 5b. And that's what I end up doing. I don't want to talk about the rest.